Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. Now, my name is Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner, operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome to the special show that we are doing today. For some of you, you're going to be listening to it like a regular podcast, regular episode. That's a little special. For some of you, you'll be able to watch the actual video version. So if you go to our YouTube page or Vimeo page, you'll be able to watch the actual video interview that I'm about to do. So we are doing something a little special this time. We're going to actually be doing an interview with someone today because there is an amazing new book out that I want to promote, and because it's highlighting a film that fits right into our wheelhouse. All right. So I would like to thank Erick Wofford for joining us today. Is I saying that right, by the way?
Wofford, it's close.
All right, Erick Wofford. He has written the book Krull, the unofficial film companion. Now, I know what you're thinking, people. I know what you're thinking. Krull, does that really belong on the Conversations of Horror? Yes, it most certainly does. We do fantasy horror, we do sci-fi horror, anything that has elements of horror in it, we will talk about because the horror genre does go out and explore other different genres, creating some amazing films such as this film. So even though we're not going to be discussing the film that much on this podcast, because we have a very special podcast that will be accompanying this program as well, so you'll be able to listen to our podcast in the movie Krull, but this one's going to focus on his book because it's going to hopefully give you a little bit more insight on the actual film itself. So just a little bit, kind of tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what your background is before you actually wrote this book.
Sure, yeah. So I have quite a diverse background. I've been a soldier, I've been a filmmaker, I worked in the film industry in Georgia for about 8 years. I've always toyed with the idea of writing a book. I love film history books, books about actors, biographies, and Krull was just the one I just landed on. I was like, no one's done this yet? That can't be true.
I'm pretty sure I don't think I've ever heard of another book based on Krull. And your book has a lot of interesting stuff in it that you probably would not normally be able to have access to. So I just want to say, what is your background for loving this movie? Because there's a billion movies out there you could have done a book on, but you decided to pick Krull. So tell why was that?
That's a good question. So I did have a long list. I still have a long list of other books I might write on other films, but I have a nostalgia for this movie. I found it when I was probably like 5 or 6 years old. It was on my dad's bookshelf. It was a VHS, all beat and tattered. And I was like, what is this movie? I saw the cover artwork and it was just super interesting. And it's one of the first, probably, minus a Disney movie or something like that, one of the first movies I was allowed to watch. And even though I had to close my eyes when certain things happen, like the lobster comes out of the person's head, or when the guys get stabbed, by the spikes, it was like the first adult movie that I was allowed to watch, and I just loved it ever since. So it's kind of like I said, kind of a nostalgia thing. I watched it with my brother and my dad, my mom, and it's just kind of a good memory to have.
Yeah, now, so I'm gonna let you know my story with this movie. I probably saw this movie 100 times when I was a kid. This was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and it was one of my favorite fantasy movies because I had never seen anything like this as a kid. And the 80s were like we had like every type of movie known to mankind in the 80s. But with this movie here, I saw the cool ass Slayers. And the glaive is one of my favorite freaking props I have ever seen in any movie. I actually have a small replica of the glaive myself in my house that I got off of Kickstarter. You guys, if you really want a glaive, you can always go find it on Kickstarter. There's a person who makes them for them. They're freaking great. And that's pretty much how I came to be able to watch this movie. Now, I'm almost 50 years old, and before I heard about your book, I hadn't seen the movie in like maybe 15 years because I'd watched it so many times as a kid. So it was very interesting to kind of revisit it because after I read your book, I was like, ah, shit, I need to rewatch this movie because I had forgotten so much of it. I remember the great parts, but I had forgotten some of the stuff in that movie. So I actually, that's how I came to this. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to speak to you, because for me and hopefully a lot of people out there, this was a movie that like hit that like sweet spot when we were growing up. And so someone thankfully you wrote a book about it, uh, uh, and so we have something now to actually read to accompany that. Now it's kind of a shame that modern audiences don't know what the film is, but we hope that after this show and program and people reading your book, they'll be able to get a greater sense of how great the movie is.
Yes, 100%. I did hear a rumor, and I think it's true. They're doing a 4K release of it. I think Sony or Kino Lorber, one of those guys. Um, but I don't know. I'm a little like hesitant. Like some movies aren't great in 4K. Like, I love Krull, but some of the like the Fire Mares in 4K, I don't know if I want to see that in 4K. But hey, I'll probably buy it anyways. So
Yeah, the my special guest for the actual regular show of the podcast actually has told me about the 4K release. He's
perfect.
one of our big 4K people on the show, and he was first like, "Oh yeah, I'll do the interview. I'll do the show with you. They're bringing out a 4K release of that movie. I love that movie." I was like, "Okay, all
Yeah.
right, okay." So what was your approach with writing this book? I don't want to tell everyone myself. I want tell my audience that myself. I want you to kind of tell us exactly what was your approach to writing this book.
Sure. Yeah, so I have a lot of film history books, biographies, making of, behind the scenes types books, and a lot of them to me are basically the author telling the audience, the reader, like his opinion for 90% of the book, and there's two interviews. And to me, that's kind of boring. I don't want people to listen to me, and my opinions about a movie that was made before I was even born. I want to know who worked on it, what people were alive, how did they promote it. So I just went around, I went on IMDb. It's got to be always the starting spot.
Yep,
Looked up all
yep.
the cast and crew, made a list, and I attempted to contact every single person on there. There was a bunch of people not on IMDb, obviously, but I just emailed, I Facebook stalked, I found personal websites, I IMDb Pro'd. If you don't know about that, that's a gold mine right there. That was 50% of the contacts I found. And I just said, "Hey, I'm a fan of the film. I'm wanting to write this book. You played this character, or you were the DP. I'd love to ask you a couple questions, or get on an interview, a video call with you. Would you be interested?" So
Hmm.
that was kind of my approach. I wanted to hear from them, not 200 pages of my opinion and what I think they should have done and how it went down.
Well, no, I think that's one of the great things about the book as well as it's all in almost. I won't say all of it. Most of it are interviews with actually the actual people behind the scenes on the film, as well as some of the actors in front of the scenes. So that was actually an asset for the book because you're right. There are so many books out there that focus mostly on a particular writer doing their interpretations of everything that is in the movie, film, or television show, whatever they're highlighting. Whereas with this book, each one of the interviews has it's each one of the interviewees has a different perspective on what their experiences on the film actually were, and that was what
Mhm.
was interesting to me.
Cool. Yeah, well that was the goal. Yeah, I want to hear from them and hear their backstories. And the funny part about it is after it got released, there was people commenting. Most people liked it, but there was a couple of people like, "No, no, no, that didn't happen. That shoot date was like this," and it's like someone 20 years old. I'm like, "Oh, so the guy interviewed who was actually there must have been wrong, and you somehow know, but you weren't even alive yet." It was kind of an odd conversation there a couple times,
Really.
but it was funny. Yeah, I don't know. It happened a couple times. I was like, okay, whatever, that's fine.
So your book actually has a lot of the technical people who are behind the scenes on the film itself, which means that when you're reading the book for the audience, we can get a lot of the background and technical aspects of how the movie was made. Was that a conscious effort that you wanted to get into the nitty gritty on how the film was made, or was that just something that kind of happened when you started contacting everybody?
It was a little bit of both. So I love the crew aspect of it, even the nitty gritty production assistant stories, stuff like that. But I was also just a victim of who responded back and who was willing to
Oh,
to be interviewed. And the other thing I didn't take into account when I started this is a lot of these filmmakers, especially the crew, upper positions, they were already 50s, 60s at the time of those movies. They're not even alive anymore to be interviewed. Or a lot of them, I probably had a dozen people who are like, I love to be interviewed, but they're like, honestly, I'm having memory issues, or I don't really remember anything about that movie. So it was interesting because I had a lot of people that were just like, I really just don't remember at my age, and I wish I could help you, but yeah. So that's something I didn't even think about. So for the future, I need to take that into account.
Wow, I wouldn't have thought about that either, but I
Yeah.
guess I guess so. This movie was an '80s movie, so it has some
Yeah.
age to it. Uh,
Yeah, it does.
so if that was one of the more, what was the easiest aspect of putting this book together?
The easiest aspect, I guess, just the actual interviews. Like once you got someone on camera, or once someone responded back to email, they were whoever I did get committals from, they were super excited. They're happy to tell the story. They kind of feel like me and you do, like this is like cult classic is kind of overused term, but they're like, this is a great movie. It had a great cast. It had great, super experienced crew. A lot of guys out of the UK that worked on big, big budget movies before Krull and after. So there's a lot of talent, in front of and behind the camera that I don't think this movie gets credit for.
No, I don't think so either. Until I read your book, I hadn't realized how much of the crew was from the UK. And I was like, oh, I would have never thought about any of this had I not read the book. I was like, that's interesting. That makes it a little bit, and especially that some of the visual effects and some of the techniques that were used in the film were kind of new at the time, and they were
Hmm.
trying to figure all this stuff out as they were doing it. I was like, okay, these are the aspects of the film that get kind of overlooked because of the time period in which it's made, and so much time has passed, and now everything's done with CGI and computer technology. Now you kind of forget the early stages of how we came to be where we are now.
Right,
I've heard.
exactly.
Oh no, I have friends who say, "Oh man, I remember that movie. That movie's so cheesy," and I'm like, "Cheesy?" So because it never seemed cheesy to me when I was growing up. But I was a kid. I saw it like 100 times. It was never cheesy to me. It was always exciting. Without me knowing it, I was like enamored with the fact that it was like this kind of hero who's going after the great evil. It was like a Star Wars movie to me, without it being like Star Wars. Like, thank God there's not a bunch of freaking droids in the movie or any of that stuff. I was still in that fantasy aspect. And then one of the things why I liked it so much. So that
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
I'm hoping that your book will kind of bring out the woodwork of those people that love it as much as we do, because I think that in order for older movies to be appreciated more by newer audiences, books like this need to be made, because we kind of forget, or audiences kind of forget that the stuff that's made now, and the CGI and the visual effects and stuff like the Avengers and Avatar, had to come from somewhere first. Someone had to
Hmm.
create that first. And because this is an older movie, it kind of gets overlooked. I can't. I will tell everyone who's listening and watching this right now that there is no movie that came out with a weapon as cool as the glaive. I don't care what anyone says.
Yep, I 100% agree. It is the coolest weapon ever, for sure.
Yeah, I always, as a kid, I always thought that they should have used it more, but I understand as an adult now why it wasn't used as much.
Right.
You don't want to use it too much.
Right, right. It can't be a lightsaber. I mean, come on.
So, kind of, I know was this your first book, or how did you approach this as being, because your background's in filmmaking, your background's in the military. How did you like kind of approach writing this book? You know?
Yeah, it was kind of a learning curve. So I've
Yeah.
I've done a couple short films. I've done a feature film. So I've written a bunch of scripts. I love script writing. That's like my first passion. Um, but it was like you have to figure it out how to write this. It's like the complete opposite process for writing a script is writing this, because you're not making, well, you shouldn't be making anything up for this book. You're supposed to be getting the facts, and it's more like a investigative journalist type
Yeah.
work, which I really hadn't done before. So it was a little bit of a learning curve, but once I kind of got a couple interviews under my belt, I was like, this is actually a lot of fun too.
Okay. And how long if you remember, how long did it take you to kind of collate all these interviews and all this information before you started writing the book?
It was honestly from when I first emailed the first person to when I was wrapped up and done and off to the publisher, about a year and a half.
Oh,
A lot of people, a lot of people they're still working in the industry, a lot of the younger guys, and they're on movies, so they're like, "Hey, when I'm off this movie, I'll give you an interview, or when I have a break, when I get back from this." So it was a lot a lot of waiting, which was
wow.
a little bit aggravating, but I mean, it is what it is. You got to get your interview. So, yeah, again, I'm just at the mercy of whoever wants to commit and what their timetable is.
Yeah, because I was I trying to figure out exactly when did you find when did you realize, okay, this was the last interview, I need to start writing it, or I just need to hold off for these more interviews before I can actually start the writing phase. When did that all kind of come together for you?
Yeah, so I kind of, while I was waiting for people to answer me back, I already started working on the cast and crew kind of bio pages with their background of films. So I already started on that. And then I had a couple interviews kind of come in right off the bat. The first one I got committed was Graham McGrath, who plays Titch. That was a great interview. And then I had a couple guys, Kent Hill, who kind of does an essay, kind of going arguing against how this is not a Star Wars knockoff. It's
That's why I
something
mentioned.
completely different. Yeah, so he was working on that in the meantime. So I was trying to do what I could while I was waiting on other people, but a lot of the stuff I couldn't finish until I had everything done and I knew who was on board. So yeah, it was kind of like hurry up and wait. It took a while, but yeah, it was still a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
All right, so we're getting into the process of you writing it now. So, what was kind of the hardest aspect of actually writing the book? What was the hardest thing for you to either find or actual writing aspect of the book?
It was the groundwork.
Oh, the
Interview,
groundwork.
trying to get people, yeah, try and just find context for a lot of these people. A lot of times I would interview or I would email their manager, their publicist,
Okay.
their personal assistant, their website, find them on Facebook or whatever. And a lot of guys I could never find. I never found Alan Armstrong, which was like, he's my favorite character in the movie. He plays Torquil. I love him. I even found his son was on Facebook or Instagram, messaged him. Never heard back anything from him. So it was kind of, yeah, an odd situation. I just had to, yeah, the writing part was easy because I basically had half the work was done for me.
The interview.
I was just copying and basically pasting or whatever we had our interview about, and then just filling in the blanks as far as the cast and crew bio pages and the essays. But yeah, I'd say just getting in contact with these people in the first place was by far the hardest part.
Now, you told us a little bit about some of the issues with trying to get some of the people there. Were there
Mhm.
anybody that you tried to get, but definitely they didn't want to be a part of the project? And if so, do you know why?
Yeah, so that was kind of another shocking aspect I didn't even think about. I had a lot of people that this kind of put a shadow on their career. They didn't get a lot of work after this. One of them being Ken Marshall.
Hmm.
He doesn't. I never actually personally spoke to him because he's not even in the industry anymore. But they had a screening in California last year with Liza Anthony and Ken Marshall, and a friend of mine actually went to the screening and met them and said, "Hey, I don't know if you ever got an email from this guy named Erick Wofford, but he's doing a book, on Krull, and he'd love to interview you, Mr. Marshall." And he was super nice, but he basically said, "You know what? I This is kind of the one of the few movies I really don't want to talk about because it was kind of my high point and also kind of ruined my career. It bombed so bad." He's like, "I didn't get a lot of work from it. I got a lot of like negative press from it." And he's like, "Honestly, it was just kind of depressing." And he's like, he was super cool about it, super nice guy apparently, but he didn't want to talk about it. The DP, which I can't remember his name at the moment, I think it's Peter something, was like best friends with the director, and I talked to him several times on email, and he was like, "Yeah," he's like, I'm just gonna have to pass on this." He's like, "I don't think it's our best work and my friend's best work." He's like, "If you want to talk about Bullet or something like that," he's like 100%, but he's like, "It's kind of a negative mark on my career and his career," and I had a lot of that. and I didn't even think about that. The first person I emailed was Liam Neeson, was his agent, and I never heard an answer from Liam Neeson, but his agent just said he's very busy right now. He's on a movie and he doesn't really discuss Krull. And if you listen to interviews
Wow.
with Liam Neeson, like he never brings up Krull. Like, and I find that strange. Like it was I think his second big movie. He did Excalibur, and then Krull, almost a couple years apart. And I thought he was great in Krull.
So did I. When I rewatched it, I was like, "Oh wait, he has a lot of lines in this movie. He
Yeah,
actually has some, he has some really good character bits in this movie compared to some of the other of I keep it. They're not robbers.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I
The,
was like, because I had forgotten he was in the movie. To be honest with you, 15 years ago, I don't know if I really knew who Liam Neeson was 15
right,
years
right.
ago when I was watching this. I definitely didn't know what it was.
Yeah, he's got a
But
great death scene. I mean, I thought he was great in the movie. I would have loved to interview him, but yeah, I ran into that a lot. A lot of people like avoided the interview, like, "Ooh, that movie bombed. I don't really want to talk about it. I'll talk about something else." Or, I didn't get a lot of work after that. It was like, what? Like, even if the movie bombed, like the craftsmanship itself and the acting was great. Like, I don't see how someone could, not give you work or something like that based off Krull, like whether it bombed or not. It's well made movie at least in my opinion.
in my opinion, it is too. I just happen to, like I said, I rewatched it recently because of the book, and we were doing a show on it, and I was like, I had forgotten how much I really loved it because when you're young, you watch some of these movies and they leave an impression on you. And then
Hmm.
you watch them a lot of times. I don't know if it's for you, but this is how I grew up. I watched it so many times, I had memorized the film. And as you get older, you don't go back to those films that you grew up with that often. You watch new movies and you kind of remember the nostalgia for these great movies or movies you think were great when you were growing up. Uh,
Yeah.
Krull has always been one of those movies because there's not many fantasy movies that really hit it with me. When I was younger, it would be like this and Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. I always like those darker fantasy
Yeah.
movies, Legend. And so those stuck with me. Whereas some of the other ones that were more realistic, like Excalibur, and I've seen those. I grew up with those, but they didn't stick with me like this movie did.
Sure.
So it's hard for me when you tell me that because the movie bombed, and I never kept track of what movies bombed or didn't bomb when you're a kid. Who cares about
Right.
that stuff? You care
Yeah.
what you like. And so it's kind of hard for me to realize, kind of like you, that when you tried to interview these people, that they were like, oh, they just don't want to talk about it because it was such a blemish on their careers. And as a fan of the movie, I kind of feel a little bad about people for that. I mean, I can understand why you don't want to talk about it. To be honest with you, I do understand. I don't talk about some of my bad movies that I made. Don't talk to me about that movie.
Yeah.
I made some bad movies before. I know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But none of my movies are going to become cult movies or cult classics. I consider Krull a cult movie, a cult classic movie. The people when I ask, they either have a good memory of the movie or they have a bad memory of the movie because they're younger people, they're a younger audience member who saw it when they were much older. So they don't have like that thing like I do when I grew up with it. So it's
Right.
always good to talk to someone about stuff like that because it's a dying thing now. we have too many streaming services out there with movies coming out every day of the week, and the older movies like this one are getting left in the dust because people
Yep.
aren't talking about them, books aren't being made about them, and then even people who are involved in the movie aren't talking about them. So that's why I see the need for stuff like your book and our continuing reevaluation and talking and conversations about these type of things.
Hmm. Yeah. 100%. I agree with you.
So I've now talked about some of the bad things about writing the book. What was the thing you enjoyed most about writing the book? Because I always want to talk about that.
Yeah. I don't know. I obviously the interviews themselves. I don't know if I have a favorite interview. I really liked my interview that I had with Nick Maley, who did all the creature effects, because we started going down the rabbit hole of other movies he worked on, and he did the original Yoda puppet. He did, I'm trying to think, Life Force.
Oh,
He did a whole bunch of cool stuff, and a lot of the stuff he did for Krull, they didn't shoot or didn't show in the movie. Like the Beast has a whole basically his organs are outside his body. He had like a pumping heart with liquid going through it, and I think in one of the Blu-ray, maybe it's a DVD editions of Krull that I have, there's a behind the scenes documentary and they show a quick little snippet of it. But he's like, they didn't use that, and he actually didn't make the Slayer suits. He thought they looked stupid, but I love them. I think they're awesome. But yeah, just talking about how he got all that stuff to work. Graham McGrath was a great interview talking about, him playing Titch and hanging out with Liam Neeson before he was a big thing and how nice he was. And then the guy that plays one of the White Slayers was a hilarious interview because he was like almost mauled to death by that tiger. Like they had a piece of plexiglass between the two White Slayers, and the tiger was really trying to eat them. And I was like, this is nuts. And then the tiger was drugged when it's laying in Titch's lap, and like it could wake up at any moment and go wild. I was like, this is like crazy filmmaking that like would never fly today. But yeah, it was awesome.
yeah, I remember some of the stories from the interviews, especially with what you're calling it, the crab-like creature that comes out of when the Slayers are killed, the crab-like creature that comes out of their skull. And until I read that in your book, hadn't even thought about that. I just kind of thought it was always cool that this little alien came out of the little Slayer's head when they got killed.
Yeah.
I've never looked closely enough at it to actually see what it is, but now I'm stuck with the crab creature that comes out of their head. That will
Yeah.
forever be what I say it is. Yeah, it's a crab creature comes out of his head.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
also
wasn't sure what it was either. I wasn't even supposed to be looking at it when I was young, but of course I'm peeking through, and yeah, it is what it is.
well, one of the interesting things I remember is reading in the book is like you try to figure out. I forget who you interviewed, but they're trying to figure out the difference between the White Slayers and the Black Slayers, and I was like, oh yeah. Why are there some white and one? What different? I guess it has to be a filmmaking visual thing because it looked
Yeah,
cool to have White Slayers in there, but
yeah.
they all act the exact same.
Yeah, yeah, I don't. Yeah, so there's a whole like the cool part about it was like there's a bunch of theories on what the Slayers are, and what the little crab lobster things coming out of their heads. Like one idea was like the beast is a hive mind, and those are all parts of the beast, like seeds of him, and they go back into the earth and come back out, as a Slayer later was a theory, and then one theory is the White Slayers. You only see them in the basically evil layer at the end, and they're like the special forces of the Slayers. So it was kind of cool, like stuff you wouldn't think about, but like obviously some thought went into it.
Yeah, that's the thing I like about the movie too, because it's got a really simple yet complicated story, this hero's journey, but it also has these visuals that even though you don't know everything that's going on, it's actually really cool to watch because they're not explaining everything. They don't explain why the glaive is going to be this great weapon that only certain people can use and it will defeat the beast. They don't explain the White Slayer versus the Black Slayer versus the crab monster that comes out of their head. But the subtlety in the films, especially with I forget the oh my god, I forget the one character who actually goes to see the widow in the web. Um,
Oh yeah. Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. Yeah, the old dude.
the
Yeah,
old dude. So
yeah,
the all of the complex background relationships with all these characters, which is very subtle. Even the Liam Neeson character, because he has multiple wives in different villages, and his wife in the current village that they're holed up over. He goes to get her to feed them all. Those little backstory and those character traits makes these a much interesting film to watch because these characters don't seem like caricatures. They all have
yeah,
unique things about them. Even the main I used to know every one of these actors' names, and now I'm going completely blank. The main the robber who's in charge of the entire group. I can't think of the actor's
Torquil's his
name.
name in the movie. Alan Armstrong's his real name.
Yeah, I freaking love that dude from
Oh
Split
yeah.
Second and everything else I've ever seen him in. I was like, dude, I love that guy. And you know, his thing is, don't take my cuffs off unless we, you know, we survive at the very end and we defeat what we're going to be defeating. I like those type of things. When I rewatched it, makes all of these characters much richer. It makes more for a much more interesting and richer film. And I'm sorry that it just shocks me that more people didn't pick up on this when the movie came out. And of course, the cult audience is small for this. Like I said, we're not hearing a bunch of people talking about it. And when we do, it will be younger people who didn't grow up with it saying, "Oh, what kind of cheesy special effects are in that movie? That movie is campy." But no, it wasn't a camp. It was a dark movie.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a dark fantasy movie, kind of like watching The Dark Crystal. The Dark Crystal is not a kids' film, dude.
No, no, it's not.
It's one of those, and that's the reason why, as a kid, we gravitate toward these things because these films are not talking down to us as young kids. They're, you know, they're making these films that could be kid, but they're just slightly dark. So you could be scared at one moment, you could be excited about the next moment, you know, and that's why this film gravitated for me so much. I'm glad you did do the book because, like I said, no one's ever done the book before. And it's interesting to see some of the other stuff that you put in there that I had no clue about. The trivia stuff and you have to tell me, you have to tell everyone about the whole cooking recipe and all. So I don't even know how you came up with that, where you found that, but it's good that you put that in the book.
So how I came up with that, there was a weird promo. I don't know if they actually ever did it or it was just an idea that I read that I think it was Dunkin' Donuts or someone like Krispy Kreme. When the movie came out, they did a Kruller donut, which was just the normal Kruller, but they spelled it with a K. And then I was like, in my mind, I was like, well, you could make a star donut pretty easy, right? And then my wife's like, yeah, I can do that. And I'll make one up real quick and see how it turns out. She just, boom, made it. And I was like, okay, I got to make the recipe because that would be just a cool thing to do. Like if you're having a movie night watching Krull, especially
Yeah.
if people have never seen it, bring out the donuts. You know, it'd be fun.
No, that's why I brought it up because that's exactly what you should do. This movie's old enough so that you can bring your friends over for a party and do you some special treats.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's and the fact that I say that because me and my friends do like game night, so we kind of explore new games and stuff like that. And then of course I looked in your book and you have like a list of games and other type of stuff that came out for when the movie originally came out. I had no clue about any of this stuff. I don't even know how you found out about where this stuff was.
Well, it was a lot of research. I didn't know about it either. And then I started researching it. I don't even remember where I found a lot of this stuff, but it just started going on a rabbit hole. I'm like, oh, they made action figures. Oh, they made a board game, and like trying to find these things. Like I found a lot of the stuff on eBay. It was like, oh, this is actually really a thing. It's not just like a gimmick, like not something that someone's kickstarting and making it now. Like this was actually made for the movie. And then when the movie bombed, they're like, okay, we'll just cut the merchandising. We're not going to do much of it. So if you can find that stuff, it's like rare and like worth a lot of money now.
So you bring up, and we've talked about this a little bit. You brought up something that I want to kind of discuss a little bit, which is why do you think the movie bombed? Do you have an actual opinion about why the movie was bombed? Why it wasn't like it didn't click with audiences at all?
I'm not sure. I think what it was, I think when you watch like the trailer, especially the first trailer, or maybe it was a teaser, it's almost not enough. It's basically the ships floating by in space. I feel like they were trying to drive home like this is Star Wars. This is the new Star Wars movie. And as you know, it's not Star Wars. And I think a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, lightsabers and Han Solo and a bunch of goofy aliens," like, and then they watch it and they're like, "Oh, this is like nothing like that." And yeah, there's elements of Star Wars or Excalibur stuff like that in there, but it's uniquely its own story and the characters. And I think that was probably part of it. And a lot of people said like, oh well, the cast wasn't as well known as Star Wars. I was like, Harrison Ford wasn't a big
Yeah.
guy. Mark Hamill wasn't a big guy. Carrie Fisher maybe had a little bit of stuff going on, but especially in the UK, like a lot of those actors, especially like the Seer and the guy that plays the Cyclops, they're like super well known in the UK, like big actors. So I don't buy into that. I think it maybe was just a matter of timing between it coming out in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and then trying to almost you know be on the coattails of Star Wars, and then but not being Star Wars. I really don't know. There's a lot of opinions out there. I don't know. What do you think?
So I have this strange love for these type of fantasy films from the 80s because I grew up in that time period. And so most all the ones I grew up with that I loved all tanked at the box office. So I just kind of think that most of the time people just don't like them. Like I'm a huge fan of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. No one talks about that movie. Okay. I am a huge fan of Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh yeah.
People talk about that one, but that movie tanked at the box office as well.
Yep.
Krull, I love. It tanked at the box office. I have this weird love for movies that just tank at the box office because as a kid, these movies were the greatest thing I had ever seen. Okay.
Right.
Star Wars was great. Don't get me wrong. I grew up with Star Wars.
Yeah.
I did not watch them in order, and my brother wants to shoot me every time I tell him I didn't watch them in order, so I don't have the same love as my brother does. But these movies, they were just one and done. I didn't have to watch them in order. I watched them over and over and over again, and I guarantee you, with me, Krull and like Buckaroo Banzai played all the time on cable and the network TV, and so I just watched them all the time.
Yeah.
It took me. I never actually saw the beginning of Krull for a long time. I always missed the beginning of Krull. I forget when I actually saw it, but it was years after I've seen the movie like 4 or 5 times, catching it on TV. I never saw
Yeah.
the beginning. I never caught the beginning. So I
Huh.
didn't see the whole spaceship coming in, and that.
Yeah.
No, I never saw that. I kind of got to the part where our main character is knocked out on the steps, and the old guy comes in to heal him, and that's where I kind of watched the rest of the movie. I know it's weird, but I never. I know. Growing up in the 80s, we didn't have streaming services. I
Right.
didn't have it on VHS. I had to watch it on TV. I missed it. I missed it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no rewind on TV. You're done.
Um, but for some reason, I think that even with the 80s, that decade that had everybody, every filmmaker coming up with the wildest and craziest stories, no matter what genre, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, everyone was coming up with every type of idea, throwing it at the wall and seeing who could come up with the next Star Wars, who could come up with the next Jaws. They were all trying to do that. And when you think too far outside the box, it's not familiar to general audiences, and they just rebel against it. And I think that's kind of what happens to some of these other movies out there. Like, if you've ever seen Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, they threw every idea at that movie, and you
I
either
have
get it
actually.
or you don't.
Yeah, I have seen it. It's been a long, long time, but I have seen it.
Yeah, those three movies, among others, are the ones I saw a thousand times as a kid. Uh, and so that's why I say when you wrote the book, I was like, someone wrote a book about Krull? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I think when I forget how I came across it. I don't know if we had a conversation about it first and then I went out and bought it, or how it all worked out. But because of that, I was like, there's got to be other people out there who love these things as much as we do, that appreciate them, or know people who can appreciate them. I'm hoping that we could find those type of people to appreciate movies like this. So
Yeah, absolutely.
getting into the movie itself, what kind of what are your feelings about this movie itself?
Like I said, I still love it. I know a lot of it's nostalgia,
Yeah,
but I think it's really well, like you said, like the characters, like such unique, interesting backstories that just were not being done. Like the Cyclops, knowing he's gonna die, but deciding to still come. The terrible magician that can't do anything right. Like it. it's not like stuff you do at that time. I think all the characters' backstories are great. The acting's great. Even the effects, like yeah, there's a couple stuff that's hasn't aged well, but a lot of the suits and the creature effects
Mhm.
still look awesome. I think it's great, and
Yeah.
I like all the stuff. Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and the
Yes.
old time machine, Mysterious Island. I don't I don't mind the aged stop motion
No.
dinosaurs. So none of that's ever bothered me, but I still think it's a really well made film. And the score is like one of the best ever, I think.
I forgot who did the score for this movie.
It
You,
is, oh man. Mm,
I keep trying to think about that, but I
yeah,
don't.
let me look at my list, but the score is like it's one of the best ever. Now I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I
He's
can't
passed
either,
away.
and I should know this.
Done Yeah, he's done like he did like every score in the 90s. Him and what's his name? The guy who does all the John Williams. Like
John
him and
what?
John Williams had everything. They were awesome.
Jerry Goldsmith, John Williams,
Yeah,
I think did like the majority of everything back in the day.
exactly.
All right, so I kind of want to talk about the design, the cover design of your book because I thought it was really interesting because it goes for a very minimalistic approach, but the color scheme is very cool. What kind of explain that to us so that we have an idea of how that came about.
Yeah, so I actually ran across the artwork. I can't remember where. I think it was when I was just researching the movie because you got to be careful when you're doing like artwork for the movie without having permission or rights from like the studio. You don't want a picture of the actor on there because then you get run into copyright issues as well. But I ran across this, and if you're a Krull fan, you instantly know what that image is. But if you're not, you're gonna be like, oh, I never really someone in the water, like it's just ink blots, like you don't know what it is. But I was like, that is perfect. So I reached out to the guy that made it. His name's Robert Wright. He's actually out of Ireland. And I kind of told him, hey, I don't have much of a budget, but I'd love to do that image for my cover of the book. And I'm kind of interviewed these people, and he was super excited. Big Krull fan. He's like, I'd love to be involved. He's like, yeah, whatever you want to do, and I'll tweak the text to make it look a little bit different from the movie, and shrink it down or do different colors. So he sent me a ton of options, and we kind of landed on that one. But yeah, I think it's super cool too. It'd be a great poster.
Yeah, yeah, I love the contrast between the red and the black. I was like, damn that, and I have the hardback copy of the book. And for everyone who's watching this, I'll make sure to add a picture of that so you actually have an idea of what book you're looking for when you go search for it on Amazon and other fine book stores.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, cool.
But yes, I had thought, oh, you could have just easily put a picture on there for the movie, but the way your cover was actually very striking, and you could put this 20 feet away from you, and it's gonna catch your eye because of the colors. I know a little bit about graphic design, not much. I'm a little bit more old school when it comes to artists and drawing myself, but I love the way that the artwork is actually on the book, and you're doing the Slayers. And if you've never seen the movie, you won't know what the hell a Slayer is. But any fan in the movie will know exactly what that image is because it's the Slayers. Thankfully you didn't try to put the Beast on there.
No, 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 no. Yeah, the Beast, like, which version? The one from the behind the scenes, or the one they show in the movie that's like you see nothing of? So, yeah,
Well,
and that's another thing. Like, if you're not a fan of the movie, hopefully you would see that image and be like, "What is that?" and pick it up, and then maybe there's a chance that person's going to want to read it. So that was kind of the thought behind
yeah.
it.
No, no, I'll say it was a good choice, and that's why I wanted to make comment of it. So
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, yeah, he's super nice guy. Yeah, like I said, Robert David Wright, he does all his own artwork. So if you want to Google him or whatever, he does all kinds of other movie, cool little artwork and pieces like that. So he's a good artist, good guy.
Hmm. And so, what you did, and I almost forgot I was going to ask you a question about this, but you mentioned some of the essays in the book. I want because you have so much other content in the book. What made you want to add a couple of these essays in the book?
Yeah, so the one I did, which is a comparison of
Mm.
the paperback versus the finished movie. That was basically just I wanted to read it and see if there was a lot of differences, and there actually was a ton. So that was the idea behind that, and I thought that's unique enough to throw in there. It's not just my opinion; it's the differences. And then when I first announced I was doing a Kroll book, a guy by the name of Kent Hill reached out to me. He's from Australia, actually. Huge fan of the Kroll book, and he does film essays and stuff for his job. He's also a filmmaker as well, and he's like, "Hey, who have you interviewed? I'm super interested." And then I kind of looked up his backstory and his writing, and I was like, "Hey, it'd be kind of cool if you wanted to like contribute to the book." And he's like, "Well, what would you want to do?" And we both are super ticked about the stupid, oh, it's a Star Wars ripoff movie. I was like, "Do you want to kind of tackle this?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to." So his essay is whole, this is its own thing. It's not like Star Wars. There's some funny humor, sarcasm in there.
Yes.
So I thought it was a good contribution to it, and kind of break up the interview after interview after interview, kind of have something different for the reader.
Now, I actually think that that's a great asset to the book itself is having that in there because the people who are aware of this film and who may not have ever looked at it in a critical or even a fan perspective, the first thing they're going to look at or think about is it's a ripoff of Star Wars, and it's good to have that in there to show that it's not a ripoff of Star Wars. It's its own thing, and this impression that audiences have that it is a ripoff of Star Wars is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people have not bothered to watch the movie. I think that those comparisons from when it was made kind of stuck, which is really unfortunate. And I'm hoping that when people read the book and they read that particular essay, they gotta get, oh, it's not like Star Wars. It's its
Right.
own thing. Because so many movies at that time are compared to Star Wars.
Yeah.
Which is a shame unless it's one of the actual Roger Corman ripoff movies of
Right.
that area. Those we
Yeah.
all know are actual ripoffs. This one
Oh
is
yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. But the other argument too is they're like, well, they use a lot of the same crew. Well, back then in the UK, there was only like it's not like it is now. There's a small select film crew that worked in the UK. They worked on all the UK movies. So yeah, there are a lot of Star Wars guys that worked on Krull and vice versa. But like that's not a valid point because they worked on everything in the UK. There's and then they filmed everything. They're like, oh well, they filmed at the same studios as Star Wars. I'm like, yeah, so did Bond, and so did everybody else. Hammer movies, like, it's a small industry, especially back then. Like, it's not like it is now. So yeah,
yeah.
there is gonna be that crossover.
Yeah, well, especially here in Georgia, where I talk to the same people who work on every Marvel movie versus every Fast and Furious movie, versus like they're all using the same people over and over again. I was like,
Yep.
yeah, because for the longest time, the talent pool in Georgia was so small, so everyone worked on everything. Uh,
Yep.
so I understand that mentality perfectly. So okay, so what was I was about to say something and I forgot. Oh, uh, okay. I'm trying to think of what else I was going to ask you because I got through most of what I wanted to say, but there was something else I can't remember. Oh my god. The thing is, before we kind of get towards an end here, I still want to know, are you working on another book other than this one because of the type of book it is, or if you're working on another screenplay? Kind of tell me what you're actually working on now.
So right now, I'm not doing any screenplays at the moment. I'm trying to wrap up a feature film that's a horror anthology. I've got to shoot just a small section for the wraparound. Um, Between moving and kids and all that kind of stuff, I haven't been able to get out and do it. But I do also have a short film that's won some awards called Blue Amber. It's based off a short story by what juice? I just forgot his name. David Shaw. So he was a big horror writer from the '80s, but he also wrote
Okay.
Crow. The original. He wrote The Hills Run Red, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. So he's like a big
Okay. Yeah.
horror guy, and he did a super gnarly Western alien short story that has a lot of humor in it, super bloody, and I adapted it, and it's kind of doing the film festival circuit right now.
Okay, good.
But as far as books about film, I am toying with some other ideas. Like I said, I still got that long list. The one I am leaning pretty heavily towards is Near Dark. I,
Oh,
I might do a
great
Near
one.
Dark book. So
Yeah, that one gets overshadowed by Lost Boys, unfortunately.
yes, yes. Oh, I love Near Dark. It's fantastic. The one I did try to do in between, I tried to do one on Prophecy, the '70s one about the giant mutated bear, not the Christopher Walken one. And I just couldn't get enough people. Like I couldn't get enough people to fill the book. It was again, that's an even older movie than Krull. I kind of was running into the same issues,
Yeah,
so
because
I had to drop that one.
isn't John Frankenheimer the director for that one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
is he passed away yet?
I think he has a lot of the cast
Yeah.
has, and yeah, I just couldn't get enough people to make a book out of it, so I had to drop that one. But yeah, I think Near Dark is definitely at the top at the moment. I still need to get settled at the house, calm down, and then reach out and see if I can collect a big enough pool of people for interviews to actually to make it happen.
Okay, well, good luck on that one. That seems very interesting. I'm a huge fan of that one too.
Yeah, hey, we'll have to get back on here.
So I do remember the question I want to ask you, and I don't want to forget it because this is very important. It is, what do you think you missed out on with this book? What do you think that you wish you had gotten but couldn't? Because that's going to be something that's very important. That if you decide to do an expanded version, you finally get the stuff that you missed out on.
Yeah, I mean, man, that's a long list.
Oh, okay.
Like I got like the DP. I was very close to getting his interview, which I would have loved. He worked on huge movies, Bullet being one of them with Steve McQueen. Ken Marshall. I don't think I'm gonna get Ken Marshall. I got really close to Lizette Anthony's interview. I didn't get that. Alan Armstrong, Torquil. One guy I talked to a while but couldn't get an interview with, and I honestly don't remember why I couldn't line it up. It was the guy who wrote the book version, Alan Dean Foster, because he's written a bunch of scripts.
Uh, Lots of
That would have been
novelizations and
great.
movies too.
Yeah,
Novelizations.
yeah. So I would have loved to add a full interview of him. Shoot, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I probably emailed over 200 people, cast and crew. Like I scoured it, and I'd say about 25% never got a response. I'd say 10% were passed away or they didn't remember. And then I'd say another 10-15% were like, this was a black spot on my career. I don't want to discuss it. So like it was, I'd say only about 50% I got actual responses back. So there's a lot of interviews I would have loved to have gotten. And in hindsight, I probably would have maybe tried to get a bunch of interviews already down on paper and then reach out to some of the bigger people and be like, hey, so and so's already done it. Hey, I've already got a bunch of people on there. Because I think that might have scared a bunch of people. They're like, oh, well, he hasn't even interviewed anyone for this book yet. This is never going to happen. I now, though, I have had some contacts come back to me now the book's out that may do an expanded version with me. I don't want to say who because it's not a for sure thing yet. But now that the book has come out, I have had some of the people that originally said no. Now they are potentially interested. So I'm hoping to do an expanded version with some more interviews from some of these people I didn't get to get.
Nice. Well, that's what I'm hoping for too. You've already got the process started. You will have the actual book, actual book already done, so people can say, "Oh, yes, there are people who actually want to know more about this film," and you should set your record straight.
Yes.
Let people know what your experiences were. It's unfortunate the movie bombed, but that did not affect your performance or your work on the film because the movie hadn't come out when you were still working on it. So
Right, exactly.
that's how I see it. So, uh,
Yeah.
with that, is there any other thing you would like to tell us about their book or the movie Krull itself?
No, I think that's a good interview. I mean, I think we covered a lot there. I just say to anyone who hasn't seen Krull, give it a shot. It's a lot of times it's on Tubi or something like that on a free streaming service.
Mm,
You know, especially if you're a fantasy, you know, horror, sci-fi, 'cause it kind of covers all three of those genres easy.
does.
You could give it a shot, and don't listen to people that say it's a Star Wars ripoff.
Yes.
And if you're a fan of Krull, or if you're a fan of just like film history, there's a lot of cool interviews in there, like with Lindsay Krause, like talking about working with Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford, and like there's the amount of people that were in the orbit of Krull is insane, and it's kind of cool, in my opinion. I'm, you know, I'm just speaking for myself here, to learn a lot of the other people that worked on Krull or were involved in Krull in a side project,
Mhm.
that you would never think would be even in that world. So, yeah, give it a try.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say a few last words. I'm hoping that with this interview, everyone who's listening and watching this interview, and for if you're listening to the actual podcast for the actual movie itself, we hope that you will have a greater appreciation of this film if you've seen it before. Now, for those of you out there who have never seen the film, we hope that you will actually go out there and actually check it out. And while you're at it, you should check out Erick's book as well, because it gives a lot of great behind the scenes information that the film itself doesn't give. And there probably isn't a whole lot of behind the scenes actual footage on the DVDs and Blu-rays yet, because unfortunately for this film, it has a lot of blemishes on it because it was a movie that did not make money at the box office. It did not make what the studios hoped it would be, and therefore it's been kind of, relegated to the cult status of film lovers out there. And the fact that it's a fantasy film. Fantasy films have the worst track record at the box office, and they're not nearly as fondly remembered as sci-fi movies or horror films when it comes to being cult movies. It's an unfortunate thing for the fantasy genre. It's not the same nowadays. Nowadays, we have plenty of fantasy films to actually gravitate towards. But back then, there were few and far between, and they weren't well remembered or well liked, except for people like me who grew up watching them 100 times. Uh, with that, I want to thank you, Erick, for joining me on this conversation of horror in which we got to delve deep into your book, Krull, the unofficial film companion. I want you all to check it out. Check this show notes. I'm going to have the link to purchase the book there and to find out more information about the book. I also make sure to give you some information about where you can find the film, because I think it is on Tubi, actually. Everything seems to be on Tubi nowadays.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, everything seems to be on Tubi nowadays. But if not, go out there. There's going to be a 4K release of it coming out. So that should tell you one thing, that there is an audience out there for this film, or they wouldn't be wasting the money to convert it to 4K.
Hey, that's a good point. That's an excellent point.
It's unfortunate that there's not enough people who know about the film and love the film to keep the name of the movie in everyone's consciousness as generation goes by with each new generation. But that's why we have these books. That's why we have these conversations. That's why we have film historians and film critique and analysis to allow you to see these films in a different light. So with that, I'm Kevin L. Powers. I hope you've enjoyed Conversations in Horror. I hope you've enjoyed this amazing interview, and I hope that you'll check out all of our previous episodes that we've done in the past, as well as continuing to do more special episodes like this. From all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, I want to wish you a pleasant day, and check out that glaive in my hand if I had it right now. Have a good day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.